生卫医农，生卫医农组主任。OK， 那就是这个地方删掉，然后放进去。那我之前都是保留。
好，各位现场展望贵宾，各位女士先生，我们今天2022国家生技研究园区招商暨人才技术媒合会 MPRP Demo Day 的开幕式，再过1分钟即将展开。现在邀请各位尽速入座，谢谢各位。 好，各位现场来宾，我们主办单位中央研究院院长先进入会场，我们是掌声欢迎一下廖院长。谢谢。当然，我们有感谢很多贵宾的莅临，我们也一并欢迎各位。好，现在请各位入座，我们即将开始今天 Demo Day 的开幕式。谢谢各位。各位长官贵宾，各位女士先生，大家好！非常欢迎各位莅临2022国家生技研究园区招商及人才技术媒合会 MBRP Demo Day 的开幕式。本次的活动是由中央研究院生医转译研究中心所主办，邀请国内产政学研医各界的专家以及业界人士，针对我们生医新创公司所需要具备的3大元素，包括技术、资金跟人才，共同合办的一项生技产业招商人才技术媒合会。我们这1天半的活动议程非常的丰富多元，包括有国际媒合会、人才媒合、MBRP 路演秀、趋势论坛，还有投资媒合擂台等等的7大主题。我相信这1天半可以让我们在线下以及线上的朋友们能够再次的感受到在后疫情时代我们生技产业蓬勃发展的现状。那我们也包括邀请了有我们国内外的生医产业人士、天使投资人、创投业者以及国际药厂，都今天有机会能够莅临，再次的感谢欢迎之意。首先，我们先邀请本次主办单位中央研究院廖俊志院长上台为我们致开幕词，请各位掌声欢迎廖院长。
陈副总统，施创办人，涂董事长，吴主任，各位在场的贵宾，媒体先生女士，大家午安，大家好。
好。
今天虽然我们仍然在疫情笼罩之下，可是我们看到说，这个生技业在过去几年来是非常蓬勃的发展，特别是我们国家生技研究园区，在几年前正式营运开始。大家都看得到，说这个这几年已经有非常快速的成长，特别是在我们这个生医转译研究中心主任吴汉忠主任的鼓励之下，及这个沈嘉玲执行长非常努力的招商跟业界服务。
可能这个麦克风声音比较小一点，我们看这声音能够稍微大一些啊，不好意思，谢谢。
这可以哈，有没有好一点？我是开了整天会，所以声音沙哑。好，所以我们今天的这个 Demo Day 已经是第2年举办。那这 Demo Day 最大的意义就是要媒合这个学术研究或比较早期的研究成果，跟业界的投资者，今天据我了解有40多个团队，那有200多个投资团队，互相认识，互相这个串接。那过去在 Demo Day 每次举办，上次举办就已经媒合到非常多的成果。我们希望说今天的 Demo Day 大家也能够把辛辛苦苦在实验室、在新创公司里面研发的成果，能够更进一步带到业界，也同时呢，大家也可以分享彼此之间的甘苦跟所有的成功的经验。所以在此，我们除了非常感谢所有的工作同仁特别是沈嘉玲执行长带领的团队在这里面非常努力同时我们也感谢所有的参与的厂商、业界同仁跟所有的研发团队共同参与，让我们的生技更能够快速发展。谢谢大家。
好，谢谢院长致辞，请院长先行回座。好，正如刚刚院长所说，我们在 Demo Day 第2届其实集结了更多的厂商。当然，我们园区里面有很多的新创公司，这次特别邀请到国际药厂以及投资方、银行界、创投业一起共襄盛举，能够在资金、技术方面多一些结合。接下来呢，我们要欢迎中华民国前副总统、中央研究院基因体研究中心陈建仁特聘研究员为我们大会致辞，请各位掌声欢迎。
大家敬爱的廖院长，还有是创办人涂行哲董事长，吴汉忠主任以及在座的我们所有的国际的厂商，还有国内的厂商，还有在座的女士先生，大家午安，大家平安，大家好。
好，
今天实在很高兴有这个机会来参加Demo Day。那这个从吴汉忠主任一手开始的这样的一个活动呢，实际上是相当的有创意，而且呢也做成了很多的媒合。那今天呢，我们有2个很重要的演讲等一下是创办人要跟我们讲这个Smart Healthcare， 然后接下来还要讲这个有关于台湾的生医产业发展的情形。那实际上政府对于生医产业的推动呢，实际上是不遗余力。可能大家都很清楚，我们生技新药产业发展条例在2007年通过以后呢，经过了一段很漫长的时间，而且有很大的功能。那个以后呢，我们最近有做了相关的修法，而这个修法呢，对于细胞疗法或者是这一个再生的医学，或者是基因的检测呢，都把它列入为我们的生医产业主要的范围里面，包括了 e-health 也在里面。所以政府呢，确确实实对于整个生医产业的推动把它寄予厚望。那刚才也跟几位朋友在聊天，实际上这个精准健康呢，也是政府很重要的国家的战略产业之一。那我们希望能够透过这个精准的健康，使得台湾的人民呢，从这个疾病的健康促进早期预防以及早期发现，然后适切的治疗呢，就整个都会有最好的一个安排。举一个很简单的例子来跟大家报告，像我们最近对于国家肺癌防治的计划，那国健署呢已经提出了一个很好的这样的计划，就会从早期的预防到早期发现，利用low dose CT 来发现，然后怎么样做更好的这一个治疗包括各式各样的免疫疗法啦，还有这一个细胞疗法等等还有标靶治疗。所以台湾整个生医产业的发展呢，是在蓬勃发展当中。那在这当中有一个很重要的关键，就是刚才廖院长提到的，我们国家生技研究园区呢，在这一方面是希望能够把这一个早期我们科学研发的出来的这个成果呢，能够很快的能够有很多厂商来承接，让我们有一个新的transition research， 然后希望能够把这一些好的研究成果变成很好的这一个生意的产物，然后对国人的健康的促进也好，疾病的预防或者是疾病的治疗呢，都会有很大的贡献。那今天来参加的厂商相当的多，谢谢你们来。我相信怎么样让我们的生技园区跟各个厂商有密切的合作，实际上对于中央研究院是有很大的帮忙。对于我们国家生技园区的帮忙当然更大。更重要的呢，对于台湾跟其他国际的合作呢，也会有所促进。所以今天是一个很美好的日子能够来参加这样的一个盛会，我相当的高兴。而且我晓得今天的演讲相当的精彩除了是创办人以外，还有其他的演讲，甚至还有跟这个国际上的一些团队来做相关的这样的一个讨论会。等一下的媒合的活动呢，也一定会相当的具有这一个令人兴奋的结果所以在这里要特别的来欢迎跟感谢大家。那大家都知道呢，台湾的人口老化呢已经是不可避免的趋势。那这样的一个情况下，在慢性病盛行，而且呢这个高龄化的挑战之下，我们怎么样让医疗科技更加的进步？除了有更好的诊断、更好的治疗以外，怎么样促进所有的年长者的健康，也变成未来我们台湾应该要努力的目标。所以未来整个在发展生医产业的时候，我也希望从这一个我们公共卫生常讲的3段5级的疾病预防来开始，包括了健康促进然后疾病预防、早期发现、早期诊断、适切的治疗，还有避免残障的产生。那如果这样子的话，我们才能够使得整个生医产业发展得很好。COVID-19 就是一个很好的例子，它使得人类整个在生医产业的发展上能够蓬勃的发展。那实际上除了传染 性疾病以外，我们国家生技园区在廖院长的卓越领导，还有吴主任的努力推动之下呢，还有这一个嘉宁这执行长的努力推动之下，我们也希望在台湾的生医产业的发展上扮演很重要的一个角色，希望大家能够合作，使台湾的生医产业越来越蓬勃，越来越发展。所以今天再一次欢迎各位贵宾，也祝大家身心灵健康、平安喜乐，更祝这一个大会呢，Demo Day 呢，能够顺利圆满成功。谢谢大家，谢谢。
好，谢谢前副总统陈建仁的精彩致辞。我想过去以副总统这样一个身份能够一直在我们生技产业里面发挥重要的功能和贡献，再次感谢。好，接下来我们欢迎下一位致辞的是中央研究院生医转译研究中心吴汉忠主任上台为我们致辞，欢迎吴主任。
中央研究院廖院长，陈前副总统，宏基是创办人，以及我们的这个生物技术开发中心涂董事长，还有 Amgen 李总经理，以及 AstraZeneca Claudio Longo 总裁 ，Merck 徐总经理，还有Roche Gary Smit 总经理。以及各位现场以及线上的贵宾们，还有我们这个整个进驻在园区所有亲爱的伙伴们同仁大家午安，大家好。好。非常谢谢各位今天可以来波隆参加我们国家生技研究园区1年1度所举办的盛会Demo Day。诚如院长所提到，2021年Demo Day 结束后有很好的成效，也媒合了许多投资合作的机会那今年我们继续2022年的这个 Demo Day 的这个活动那今年的活动也包括7大重大的主题其中有这个国际的这个生医产业的趋势论坛，我们很荣幸的邀请到3位国际级世界级的演讲者包括是创办人待会就会给我们一场精彩的演讲。那在这个投资媒合会还有国际媒合会，廖院长刚才也提到我们媒合了大概有超过30个这个新创公司转译团队的一个投资的媒合会那这一次的会议还有几个重要的特色其中包括一个人才博览会据我了解也提供了将近100位的职缺透过国家研究园区的这个人才媒合平台由沈执行长的团队所建立的可以快速去媒合这些人才，所以从这里也可以找到最佳的人才人才也可以找到最合适的这个工作那另外我们也从转译中心跟进驻的厂商里面筛选了将近有50个这个技术这个都会有一个技术的一个发表的一个这个专区欢迎各位多多去给予指导。那国家生技研究园区在我想廖院长的大力支持之下我想这个整个软硬体设备也逐步都完善这是相当的感谢那我想在整个园区的运作过程，我在这里也要特别谢谢我们的这个园区的合作伙伴包括生物技术开发中心食药署以及国家动物中心，大家一起在这里一起努力为台湾的生技发展一起努力所以我们也经常一起讨论在这所有相关的活动还有包括国家生技研究园区的这个学院都有很好的互动跟合作。那大家在一起这几年来合作无间所以工作愉快这也是在这里也特别谢谢这几位进驻的伙伴那另外我也要谢谢这个陶执行长 已经目前在转译医学团队已经筛选了27个这个杰出的转译研究团队其中21个来自中央研究院那6个来自于全国各大专院校的一个优秀的转译团队那这个进驻在园区，我们就予以培育那这样也要谢谢廖院长，这个在每一年他是亲自主持邀请国内外的专家生技产业的专家亲自主持筛选这些优秀的案源进入到园区。当然我也了解，在这很短的时间，差不多2年的培育有一些至少有4家公司都已经成立新创公司，也进驻在园区变成是国家生技研究园区育成进驻来源的一个很重要的一个优秀团队的一个来源那另外这个创辅育成中心沈执行长在他的团队努力之下现在这个我常听到说这个进驻那个到园区的这个那个空间已经是几乎是满租了那常常是一位难求这个是进展是相当的快速这个也验证了一句话，就是只要把生医产业生态系做好那自然而然这个优秀的转译团队就会进到园区。现在经过这个进驻委员会的严选目前已经有41家的生技公司新创公司这个进驻到园区各个我给我的 information 因为很多投资者也希望能够投资这个园区的新创公司，告诉我说你们这个园区里面这个41家厂商都是身怀绝技，各个卧虎藏龙这个我听的是很开心。后来也希望各位投资这个或创投能够多多支持园区里面的进驻厂商OK， 那我想国家生技研究园区一定还是会持续的努力做好我们各项的优质服务，然后也能够把我们的这个生医产业生态系不断的精进不断的精进。那我想在有一流的生医转译团队，以及一流的这个新创公司再加上在有园区的有良好的完善的生医产业生态系的这个孕育之下我想很期待这个未来一定会有一家一家的这个生医独角兽，甚至护国神山从国家生技研究园区里面一个一个诞生那最后我想就在这里先预祝这2天的会议能够圆满结束，大家收获满满，那1年做得比1年好然后也祝福在座的线上的各位嘉宾们能够这个身心灵健康快乐。好，谢谢大家。
好，谢谢，也非常感谢吴汉忠主任的致辞。我想，诚如吴汉忠主任刚刚所提到的，期望我们这个园区能成为整个亚洲最大、最具指标性的生物科技的指标园区。好，我们非常感谢。那接下来呢，我要邀请的是财团法人生物技术开发中心董事长涂醒哲涂董事长上台为我们致辞。各位欢迎我们涂董事长。
我们中院廖院长，前副总统，还有我们宏基的总裁吴汉忠主任，好像吴秀美师长还没有到的样子各位我们这个国际药厂的 CEO， 我们这个研发团队，还有各位同仁，大家午安，大家好。今天我们我是财团法人生物技术开发中心涂醒哲涂董事长，作为一个生技园区的一部分，我们是非常非常高兴今天来跟这个我们的转译中心中央研究院一起来协办这一次的一个猎魔类。去年的猎魔类我也是全程参加，也觉得非常非常有意思了那今年再度举办这样子的一个猎魔类，我看到虽然大家都戴口罩，还是做得满满，大家对这个很有期待。那如果说把台湾当成 一家大的生技公司来看，这个中央研究院，就好像是我们研究的这个龙头老大带着大家研究出各种各样的新的有意义的解决medical need 的这些研发成果。那我们生物技术开发中心就好像我们叫做开发嘛，也就是我们愿意做这个研发者以及产业之间的桥梁，那把它产业化，能够让它真的落实。期待未来有一天呢，我们研发的很多成果，可以销售到全世界去，不要说大部分都在买外国货这样这个是我们内心非常大的期待。那我们这几年也跟我们很多国外的厂商包括美国的Johnson 包括 Amgen 也包括像日本的Smit 以及这个 Takeda 等等或者我们现在在今天很多人来的这个 Merck 等等我们也都有各式各样子的一个合作很多国际药厂。那这样一些合作我们也发现说，台湾尤其在 COVID-19 疫情以后呢，得到世界上更多的重视。那国内也很支持啦，所以我们本来从1兆1500亿左右的这个上市柜的数字，降到8000多亿以后呢，随着 COVID-19 的关系，现在已经又升到1兆3-4千亿的这个数值了。当然，这个这样子的整个全台湾的这个数字其实还是以及产能还是相对于这个我们 ICT 产业我们施董事长在这里就知道，我们大概不到他们的1/10啦生物科技方面的，所以这个部分我们还有很大的努力的空间。随着 COVID-19 疫情，台湾防疫的成功，这防疫成功真的要感谢我们前副总统这个在上级指导之下，我们坦白讲做的非常非常的不错了那虽然最近疫情有在出紧，不过能够撑到从那比较严重发病的这个阿尔法、贝塔、德尔塔等等，一直撑到我们现在 Omicron， 这个我们赚取到的时间这个其实是一个非常大的一个贡献所以这个 COVID-19 疫情带来台湾 GDP 的成长，也带来台湾生技产业方面的一些大家的愿景，国人也很支持在这个上市柜个股票的数值上有所提升，国外也非常非常的支持，越来越多的来想要跟我们做进一步的合作所以我有几个期许我们生技中心以及我们生技园区这个部分第一个，我们 DCB 很想做这个台湾的 Gloria， 我一次跟那个陈良基陈部长讲说，你们 Gloria 很好，这个 idea 很好，让各个学校的研发成果能够产业化。不过你们这样子做法好像是开干嘛点了开个干嘛，到处都有这几个人而已有时候也没有那么专业研发出来的成果，他们也不一定能够全部帮得上忙那还不如我们来用大医院的形式，用这个这个百货公司的方式，全部集在一起。我们用几个 team 巡回去各个学校跟他们看一看他们有什么需要帮忙需要帮忙的话就派一小组去。那这个大组的话2-3组就够了，一直巡回3个月去看一次，有什么成果进展值得了解的，同时也可以了解别人在做什么，可以媒合一下。这样的话，用百货公司用大的这个我们的医学中心的这种概念，而不是用一颗一个气的伽马点的概念。他说：“这个很好，这个有意思哦。”第二个，我也是觉得我们未来可能可以来组一个国际行销策略的一个策略的小组或联盟，那然后把我们的这些东西国内好的东西，能够主动每个月寄给国外这个很多比较关心台湾生技产业的，我们可以透过跟外交部的合作、侨委会的合作，以及我们这个我们 很多比较有关心的，包括我们的这个可以帮我们找到合作的对象不管是钱方面的合作还是研究方面的合作，我们来做一个策略小组，那认真的每一个月主动出击告诉他们我们做什么。当然最后我是期待我们这个园区可以做得非常成功，第一类、demo类也是非常成功，未来可能可以给全台湾来使用帮忙全台湾，所以未来说不定不是每一年一度的demo类把year，最好慢慢的 demo类把season，demo类把months，到最后甚至 demo类把 week， 然后变成说 every day 都是 demo类，然后我们用一个好好的平台，让外国厂商只要想到台湾的生技，在这个平台上随时都可以找到最新研发的进展，然后这上面也可以做媒体上最好的一个媒合，然后让台湾的生技产业的量能不是一年一度在这里给大家看到，是随时给大家看到。那当然第一步先demo类我们做得非常成功，期待未来可能不是一年才一次，半年一次一季一次。那在这里祝所有的参加的厂商以及想要投资的这些资金面的伙伴们，能够这2天能够收获满满，带来台湾生技产业的荣景，早日落实我们蔡英文总统想要把台湾变成一个生技产业的重镇的这样子的一个政见那我相信在这个前副总统的协助之下，在我们廖院长的整个的带领之下，我们生技园区应该说可以越来做得越好，让台湾的产业蓬勃发展。谢谢大家，谢谢。
好，谢谢董事长。请董事长在舞台上直接留步因为借这个机会呢，我们要邀请贵宾们一起上台合影留念好，我现在来陆续邀请我们上台的贵宾。我们这次也非常高兴有我们的外国朋友莅临现场，所以我先邀请我们台湾 AstraZeneca 的 Claudio Longo President 总裁呢上台加入我们的合影行列。我们先邀请 Claudio Longo President from AstraZeneca。第二位为各位邀请的是罗氏大药厂 from Roche Pharmaceutical General Manager Gurish Muli。Please come to the stage as well. Welcome. 第三位欢迎台湾安进总经理李宜真李总经理，有请。接下来是默克医疗保健事业体台湾及香港澳门总经理余文慧余总经理，也欢迎。好，接下来我们欢迎行政院科技汇报生卫医农组组主任刘祖慧，欢迎您上台加入我们的合影。接下来为各位介绍的是财团法人智荣基金会，也是宏基创办人施振荣董事长，有请。施董事长也是我们等一下论坛1的主讲人好，下一位是中央研究院生医转译研究中心主任吴汉忠吴主任。接下来是中华民国前副总统、中央研究院基因体中心特聘研究员陈建仁院士，以及最后欢迎中央研究院院长廖俊智廖院长，有请。我想我们第2届国家生技研究园区的招商人才技术媒合会呢，有这么多的好朋友，不管是在药厂或是新创的厂商一起合作，相信承我们董事长所说demo every day 好，我们现在先看在前方，我们摄影朋友为各位一起合影。好，这是第1张照片我们可以第一个很自然的一个 pose 好，第2张我们是不是请院长带领大家为我们的生医产业加油，好不好？一个 thumbs up， 左手或右手都可以，用我们的 thumbs up 来面对我们的媒体朋友。好，我们后方的摄影也可以稍微各位的视线朝向我们中央区，我们的摄影机那边也有一些媒体记者跟各位拍照。好 ，OK 了吗？好，接下来我们还有第2张照片我们现在请贵宾们一起先回到我们的原座位上。第2张照片呢，我们将会邀请摄影师从舞台上往下拍。那么这是一个现场全体都参与的画面。先请贵宾们先回到您的原座位。同时，我们今天这个非常醒目的这个标志MVRT 的 Demo Day 标志呢，就摆在我们正前方会让我们今天的照片呢会非常的 盛大啊。好，现在我们的摄影师呢已经在台上了，各位请先入座。我们在这个时候是不是有一个手举牌要发给我们的几位贵宾一起手举我们的 thumbs up 或者是各种的 logo slogan？ 好，我们请工作人员协助将我们的牌子交给我们的贵宾们，好吗？我们这一天半的时间哦，相信是非常多元、丰富、精彩啊，而且线上线下可以同时进行，将我们的影响力更加的扩大。好，现在请各位将视线看到我们中央区舞台上面的各个媒体镜头。先看我们中央这一台是大会的哦。好，来3、2、1。好，这是第一张。同样的，我们邀请我们现场贵宾呢一起全体好不好 ？Thumbs up， 为我们的生医产业，为我们将来呢如何在研究迈向我们产业发展呢做更好的一个期待。好，请各位媒体朋友们把握时间。我们在此也祝愿2022 MBRP Demo Day 这一天半的时间活动当中能够顺利成功。好，3、2、1。好，可以吗？好 ，OK， 谢谢各位朋友，谢谢各位贵宾，谢谢。在简短的开幕式之后呢，我们接下来就要进行我们今天的重头戏了。有诸多的贵宾，我们特别邀请在今天呢为各位发表重要的研究结果以及他们的真知灼见。首先，我们要进行的是第一场趋势论坛，主题是台湾智慧医疗全球化的契机以及挑战。我们特邀到了的演讲贵宾呢，就是我们宏碁的创办人，目前也是智荣文教基金会的董事长施振荣先生。那么在此之前呢，我要邀请我们一位引言人，是生医转译研究中心副主任林荣信，先上台为我们介绍主讲人以及主题。我们掌声欢迎林副主任。
这个院长陈副总统，这个施创办人，然后各位贵宾各位药厂的这个长官们大家好。那我是生医转译研究中心的副主任林荣信，现在是这个智慧学专题中心的执行长。那今天非常荣幸有机会来为这个施创办人、施董事长，等一下的这个趋势论坛的演讲呢，做一个简单的介绍哈。那施董事长他现在是这个他是宏碁集团的创办人也是这个宏碁公司的荣誉董事长，目前也是智荣基金会的董事长他是以成为社会企业家为职志那目前呢也是担任亚洲矽谷物联网产业大联盟的荣誉会长。那他非常积极在推动台湾产业的转型升级，以让大家来面临未来的挑战那施先生现在也是这个宏碁南山董事的南山人寿的董事，在社会服务方面呢，他是台湾精品品牌协会的名誉理事长，台湾全国无线平台策进会的荣誉理事长。那除此之外呢，他还参加了非常多台湾重要的文化活动，比如说他是这个公共电视的董事以及这个云门文化艺术基金会的董事长，台湾 Connection TC 乐友会的会长还有一个台湾的这个湾声乐团的后援会的会长这个是只有这个表演台湾作曲家的这个曲子，或者说为了台湾的一个曲子的一个音乐团体。同时呢，也是文化科技发展联盟的召集人文化科技发展协会理事长，以及科文双荣公司的董事长那此外呢，他也担任了国际联盟的兼任社会再造委员会叫做 Reform for Resilience Commission 的国际委员所以除了在台湾之外，大家也看到他在国际的链接非常的卓越那他在这个1976年的时候呢，就已经获选我们全国的10大杰出青年。1981年的时候呢，也获选全国青年创业楷模。 在1983年的时候呢，更获选第1届的世界10大杰出青年，同时也是前亚洲企业领袖协会的会长，那在2004年的时候，他从这个宏基公司退休，那在2011年到2016年之间担任国家文化艺术基金会董事长，这个任内积极的搭建这个艺术跟企业的合作平台。我相信，如果在座有很多人常去国家音乐厅，应该会常看到这个施董事长啊。那在1996年，美国商业周刊评选他为全国25位最杰出的企业管理者之一。2006年也获得美国《时代》杂志 Time 选为60周年亚洲英雄，表彰他对这个全球 IT 产业的贡献。那2007年，施先生也代表总统赴这个澳洲雪梨出席第15届这个 APEC， 就是亚太经济合作协议的领袖会议那也是因为他对于我们国家社会的常年贡献，在2011年他也获得总统颁发国家的2等景星勋章。那在2012年呢，也获得第1届的我们的工业技术研究院ITRI 的院士那我想这件事非常高兴，很荣幸有这个机会来帮大家介绍这个施创办人、施董事长。那让我们大家来欢迎这个施董事长的精彩演讲，谢谢。
陈前副总统，各位贵宾，各位朋友，大家好。今天很荣幸有这个机会跟大家分享一下我对于智慧医疗台湾能够面对国际社会做一些贡献的这个契机，以及我们面对的挑战呢，提出我个人的一些看法。那2016年的时候，我在继1989年我提出科技岛跟世界公民的台湾愿景之后呢，我提出了创新细岛 （Innovation Island） 跟东方的细文明 （Civilization） 这样一个新的愿景。因为很明显的，未来整个人类文明最重要的是靠科技，而现在最重要的科技是Silicon的科技，就是半导体。那台湾又是世界相对已经是最领先的，有这个基础，所以我们如何借重这个创新细岛的基础，能够对人类未来文明最重要的各个项目，包含今天我们的议题智慧医疗，因为文明里面健康、防疫、健康、医疗是重要的一个项目。现在等于面对未来都是比较跨产业的要的合作。台湾人才最优秀的当然来自医界，那但是应该不次优秀的了，就理工的、电子的，他们已经有国际胜出的这个经验了，已经对世界做出贡献。我只能说，台湾的医界对人类的贡献是有限的，因为它是服务的项目范围太小了，所以如果有一天国际化的话，他们是对人类会做出更大的一个贡献。那电子医材跟人工智慧的服务呢，是未来大趋势。所以如何两匹人马能够合力来迎接这个机会？在2019年，我提出了微笑曲线。那微笑曲线的思考可以说是多维的微笑曲线。最右边是以用户的体验为中的思考，那如何在左边利用现有我们有的核心能量资源 就资通信跟医疗方面的资源，来有一个共享的一个机制呢。那在这个过程里面，当然要透过设计的思考，来研发、来探索一个新的有效的商业模式呢。那整个可以说要落实，现在谈的最多的就是体验经济跟共享经济。大家比较看得多具体的共享经济呢，是有形的共享，就是 Uber 了、Airbnb 了、Ubike 的在台湾。但是呢，无形的资通信的研发能量跟医疗的研发 IP 的结合呢，将来创造的价值会更高。那有价值的东西就是体验，不是看得见的东西而已，而是你得到像病人得到最好的一个体验呢，这个最有价值。所以要朝这方面走，我们第一个就思维要先能够翻转，然后我们建构一些机制来配合，到最后我们才能够有效的落实。我用图案的方法让大家了解，绿色的就资通信，蓝色的是医疗方面的。那新的微笑曲线呢，我们当然要追求这个世界第一的，因为科别很多了，所以我们某一个项目拿到世界第一并不难了，因为这个比奥运会的金牌还多哈。所以我们如果看，大家注意再看，左边的是蓝绿是一半一半的，大家分享共享。在 delivery 这个生产就制造过程里面的绿色的扮演比较多的角色，就是资讯的平台。到右边呢，应该医界要服务让病友能够更好的体验的时候，他扮演更多的角色。这样的一个这个机会呢，所以我觉得有待我们两方的人马呢，大家一起有这个共识。我退休等于18年了哈，我的使命之一呢，就是第一个，我了解到医界呢的朋友呢，他心理上没有产业的观念，更没有国际化的思维。那这个倡议呢，一定要变成一个产业。如果从产学共创的观念，医界反而是最领先的。一般理工的教授跟产业挂钩，不像我们的医学的教授跟临床是同样都在做的，研究也跟他的临床也有关系。但是如何能够国际化呢，才会创造它应有的一个价值。所以我一直在谈，我的使命就是让医生睡觉也可以赚钱。那郭校长说，我们不是为了赚钱来做医生的，所以我就改口说，是要让对睡觉也你在晚上睡觉的时候，对国际社会能够做出贡献，因为他的分身就是他的很多的经验放到医材，放到人工智慧里面。那这里面我们要以王道的信念，也就是要大家一起共创价值，然后能够产生利益，能够平衡。共创王道我是等于从创业前一直在推动了，这在落实了实践的。但真正提出这个名字、这个系统的思维是在2011年，等于11年前。为了创造价值，3个基本信念就创造价值、利益平衡、永续经营。为了是要永续经营，那创造的价值呢？我就提出，这个是1989年我在科技岛里面就提出来的概念。我们要重视直接、间接、有形、无形、现在、未来的价值或者成本。那时候没有所谓6面向，所以我提出6面向的总价值。但是人一般对于显性价值，就现在直接有形的比较有感，对于间接无形未来的价值呢比较无感。但是我们研发、人才训练、教育都是属于隐性价值的投入。今天我们探讨很多问题，都是面对未来，我们希望掌握这个机会。所以这里面要领导王道，应该是大大小小领导人之道，就是在座的大概都是扮演这个角色。那第一个概念就有6面向的价值的观念。那价值是共创出来的，所有利害相关者共创价值，所以 一定要有一个诱因，让他们得到利益，而利益相对要平衡，因为利益要没有平衡就没有诱因。那利益没有绝对的利益，绝对的平衡，而是相对的平衡，而且随着时间环境的不同，要动态的调整，产生一个平衡的机制。所以这里面也是很重要的。那台湾发展医疗产业，当然水准够好了。我们的健保制度领先国际。生医，我记得李志正应该30年前有推动生物科技这方面，临床的实验好哦，我们的性价比最高。那在发展智慧医疗的，认为呢，政府应该要扮演很重要的一个角色。我一直在认为，台湾的产业发展很多都是原来的管制部的范围里面，交通部了、财政部了、NCC 都是管制的东西，卫福部都是要管制的。但是这个实际上应该发展跟管制要并重，这个也是脑袋瓜子要 switch 一下。说我对产业发展还是我的任务之一。FDA 也是你对于整个这个产业医材或者人工智慧的服务要国际化，必须要有的。所以我一方面时效很重要，一方面 TFDA 有朝一日至少要有这个企图心，20-30年之后，它就世界相对于 FDA 是一样的知名度。一样的品质、形象一样的好，这是一个很重要的。就像我在推动新年音乐会的时候，我希望台湾的新年音乐会跟维也纳的新年音乐会齐名，20年之后，都是你要看长远的一个目标。所以远距医疗因为有疫情，所以慢慢有一些放松，这个是对大家都很好。那至于台湾健保的给付，因为现在所有的仪器都是进口的为主，能够让有台湾 TFDA 台湾给给付的这个智慧医材，国健署能够也对让台湾的产品能够就地能够落地是很重要的。但是台湾有一个基本的问题，就是整个产业的发展都是 B to B 的，很强，隐性冠军很多，但是 B to C 的，因为能力也不足，投资也很长远很大，所以这方面并不是很强的。所以形象，就算半导体，我们就已经是世界第一，都做生意人知道，一般老百姓不晓得台湾这么厉害。如果不是最近乌俄的战争里面，那个美国一直在强调半导体的重要性等等，可能老百姓大概都不太知道。所以长期我们要有 B to B to C 或者 B to C 的这个能力。那 B to B to C 跟 B to C 的设计的理念跟 B to B 是有点不同的，所以要有设计的思考，以 user centric 来做主导的这个观念，而且要有一个 business model 能够获利是很重要的。那刚刚有谈到生态 ecosystem。整个台湾的整个现在半导体的 ecosystem 或者自通信的 ecosystem 在台湾应该相对最有竞争力的。那国家的品牌形象也要去思考。最后我看时间还可以，讲了13分钟了，所以要赶，已经 delay 了一点时间，所以我等于目前我花一些功夫在宏基智易，这是宏基利用自通信的能量，以及已经在国际建立的品牌，以及通路的这样一个经验呢，希望对于未来有潜力创造一些附加价值的一个项目。那目前当然公司是很重视，但是新的事业都是花钱的事业呢。所以，而且有时候不得要领，所以现在我是等于对现在的董事长负责的，替他分担一些时间来扮演一些 角色。那科技及营界的管理，这个是我们的企业使命。那这个公司呢，是为了要申请 GMP、ISO 这些，如果2000多个人都来弄的话，不得了。所以变成一个小组织，为了这个智慧医疗，有几十个人开始，就全公司都能够进入做这个 GMP 跟 ISO 的努力。然后就后来是以眼睛，因为每一个人有一双眼睛，就以这个为第一个影像，因为影像对 AI 来讲相对是比较容易的。而且他第一个找到的题目，是因为糖尿病的这个也是算是很慢性的，但是很重要的一个项目，所以许可证的取得是很重要的。导入医院这个才等一下我会说明，才第一阶段。第二阶段呢，导入医院来用。第三个就是要国际化。这个都是需要很多的时间。2019年就拿到了这个，跟我们董事长还有台大医院院长，吴署长，食药署吴署长。那实质上，我们的 AI 的政策力当然问题不大。问题因为我们不做硬体，只做服务 AI， 所以我们是把所有国际上现成的这个品牌，全部都要认证，全部都可以。那这个是各种品牌都有。台湾现在已经拿到了泰国、印尼、菲律宾，还有很多还在申请中。香港因为它不需要，香港也在推动中，所以这个也花很多功夫了。一个眼睛，从眼睛的视网膜要看的，可能不仅是糖尿病，还有眼睛本身的老人性的黄斑部病变、青光眼、近视性的黄斑部的病变的问题。那当然，从 X 光的相片里面可以看到什么？比如说像骨质疏松的可能性在哪里？这一般医生要看也不是那么容易。从 ECG 的这个心电图里面，又要看很多预测未来可能的病症，这个都是只有靠人工智慧可以做得到。所以很重要的就是，我们刚开始一定跟医学中心、临床实验有那些资料，再加上有很好的 labeling。然后我们透过人工智慧，这个案子我们又跟国际的药厂 Novartis 也合作。那刚才硬体的所有的这些国内外都有制造硬体的人，我一定要跟他们一起合作。这有3个阶段。现在我们在台湾的医疗中心或者学校里面，第一阶段做的不少，很多很多，但是它不是产业的。他只是在做健康医疗服务的。那产业的这个问题呢，一定要跟企业界做配合，要有 ISO、GMP 的这些问题，还有认证，要得到认证。那接下来就落地了，要国际化，并不是那么容易。宏碁当然现在等于已经开始进入海外市场的推广了，还要一点时间，并不是那么容易。卡住了，现在卡住了。哦，有。OK， 最后一个 slide 了，我就。因为国际化是很大的机会，但是很大的一个挑战。那当然要一个一个想办法克服。这个过程我已经做了50年。第一个，我们 MIT 的形象呢，国家形象，我也记得我初期1981年的时候，菲律宾新加坡的客户回一个很客气的一个信，对我们的推广信，他说台湾不是生产电脑的国家，我没有兴趣。这个就是国家形象。 品牌形象当然像那个时候叫 Multitech、Acer， 当然大家也都不了解，这个都是一个问题。但是 Acer 现在有全球的知名度，有一定的规模，有一定的定位，但是它的联想，它是资通信做电脑的，跟医疗有什么关系？这个要 associate 的，要想办法连起来，都要慢慢让他们知道为什么叫成立一个子公司，公司名叫 Acer Medical， 至少公司是说我们 commit 在 medical 这方面。这个相对的国际化是一个风险高，时间要花很长，所以一定要有热忱，气也要够长，还有信心，不断的要建立这个信心，这个是一个很长的一个时间。另外一个，单一产品的管销费用高，我投资到美国一家做眼科 CTC 的公司，做到1年有4、5千万美金了以后，后来也卖掉了，因为它只有一个产品，管销费用太高，还是花不来，所以一定要产品多，有很多创新的产品跟多元化的产品来分摊那些管销的费用。一趟出去跟医院建立关系，最好可以介绍更多的一个产品。不要说医疗产品，包含宏基，在2000年把品牌跟研发制造分开，研发制造就不卖给只卖给一个品牌了 ，Acer 不只靠自己内部做的产品，我就把台湾所有的产品都挂了一个 Acer 就打出去了。所以这样一个产业分工，才能够制造成本也可以竞争力快，客户多有竞争力，品牌的它也很多的产品呢，在市场上也更竞争力。尤其延展制造跟品牌经营是完全不同的管理文化，而且能力也完全不同。对台湾来讲，国际行销的能力呢，相对我只能讲投资还不够，还差了很多了。制造10年可以有水准，研发20、30年，要品牌的话30、50年以上，所以这个一条路要去走了。所以研制代工 ODM， 自有品牌做 OGM， 应该分开专注来做经营。所以要克服这个我们国际化这么大的一个机会，我们要面对的它的挑战，它的困难呢，是我们心理上这个时间不是3年5年，不是10年，可能20年、30年、50年的事情，要有时间的概念，要很有耐心，而且在这个过程里面要有信心，或者手会软，所以也要能够有所成了。虽然小，也要能够有利可图，才有信心。还有要历练，没有失败的话，我记得不是应该每一个人都知道，小学生的时候就有一句话叫"失败为成功之母"，所以一定要很多历练，教了很多学会，才有今天，才有成功的一天。所以谢谢各位，最后应该完了哈，谢谢各位，最后一个没有跳过去，好，谢谢。
好，谢谢。那个有一个纪念品要送给你。
OK 啊，
好，我们中间
对，还是可能处理一下。
好。好，非常谢谢施仲文先生的演讲。那么我们大会呢有一个纪念小礼物啊，要致赠给我们今天的演讲贵宾，所以我们再次邀请林荣信副主任上台，代表我们大会致赠纪念礼物给我们的施正荣先生，来有请到我们的舞台中央。我们方便把这个荧幕往上升吗？这样后面的看板可以显出更为漂亮一点啊。好，请各位我们大会媒体还有摄影呢能够准备好。好，请看2位看前方的镜头。好 ，OK， 我们各位是不是再次掌声？谢谢施创办人、施董事长，谢谢您，谢谢。好， 在我们趋势论坛一完成之后呢，我们接下来要进行的是第2场的趋势论坛，而这一阶段我们将采用座谈的方式来跟各位进行，所以台上现在我们大会人员正在进行一个场布哦。那借此机会呢，我要感谢我们这一次协助我们第2届的 Demo Day 的很多的单位，包括有工协会、智库，还有我们的药厂，这包括有中央研究院智财技转处、财团法人生物技术开发中心、生医商品化中心、经济部生技医药产业发展推动小组、南港生技育成中心、Taiwan Bio 台湾生物产业发展协会。那么在厂商方面呢，我们感谢默克股份有限公司、罗氏大药厂、台湾武田药品工业以及资诚联合会计师事务所。我们有药厂，也有会计师事务所，从财务、从技术方面呢一起共襄盛举，谢谢各位的支持。好，那么接下来就要进行第2场趋势论坛。这场的主题是国际医药产业的发展。我们邀请与会的贵宾一起上台。我们先欢迎本场的主持人，中央研究院生医转译研究中心谢兴邦副主任。我们先请副主任上我们的主持人位置，来有请。而这边呢，我们有邀请到国内外的外国朋友也出席。首先，我们邀请的 first one, I would like to invite the Roche Pharmaceutical General Manager Girish Murli, please come on to stage to join us. 第2位为各位欢迎的是默克医疗保健事业体台湾及香港澳门总经理余文慧，余总经理，请您步上舞台。第3位是台湾安进药品有限公司总经理李宜真，李总经理。And 第4位 ，the fourth panelist is from AstraZeneca President Claudio Longo 总裁。请 Claudio Longo 总裁也步上舞台，就我们的位置。好，那接下来我们就将主持棒交给我们今天的主持人谢兴邦副主任，有请。
The Chairman Xu played a very important role in Taiwan ICT industry for several decades. Now the successful story will be continuing in the digital health in MBRP, since the Acer has initiated a pioneer the AI project right now, which is nearby located in our building C. So next will be the special panel discussion for the global trend in the pharmaceutical industry. So let me introduce our distinguished speaker today. So first of all, the general manager in Roche Pharmaceutical, Girish Murli. Okay. So second is the company president in AstraZeneca Taiwan, Claudio Longo. Okay. The third one is the Merck Health Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, the president, Wenhui Yu Wenyi. Yuanhui. Okay. So I forgot Claudio had his wonderful Chinese name called Long Yunhe, right? Okay. It's quite interesting. Okay. Okay. The fifth one is the fourth one is the general manager in Amgen Taiwan, Joyce Lee. Okay, so Amgen and the MBRP have the long-term partnership since 2019. We collaborate with several business pitching, science courses, and even more some ESG activity. So today I would like to let my partner to host this panel discussion. So she will not only share the Amgen experience but also facilitate the discussion on the digital health and the development trend in pharmaceutical. So let's welcome Joyce.
Thanks, Deputy Director Dr. Xie. Every time returning here to the campus, I always have a home-like feeling. This is a 5th year, Amgen Taiwan, we officially start the collaborations with MBRP. And under this long-term partnership, I do see the mutual progress in research and development, in talent, in education. So today is my honor to facilitate the conversations with the industry leaders together. And I think Mr. Shi, his talk is always very inspiring for us. I heard the 微笑曲线, the curve of smile, 3 years ago in the BTC, the committee meeting. And I think that is really a very visionary idea, how we can combine the strengths in Taiwan for ICT and with another strength from biomedical. So I think today is a great opportunity for 4 of us to share from the multinational company what we have started to do. And before I invite the perspective from the peer GMs here, let me start to share how Amgen has integrated the artificial intelligence in our work. Amgen is a company 42 years old. We are specific in protein medicine, and we have very strong expertise in protein engineering. But however, we also recognize the challenge on multi-specific medicine discovery. So in the past decade, we tried very hard to try to leverage the traditional wet lab, the lab as we know, and with the dry lab. I think dry lab is the power of technology. So how we can combine these 2 labs to let them have a happy marriage. We use that term internally. So we use the wet lab and with the high put-through automation, with the dry lab, the computational biology. So think about it. If today we can leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence to analyze hundreds of millions the proteins, the known proteins, and then with some statistical analysis to find the sequence of the amino acids, to think about the structures, the functions, and then we can computerization of those potential novel proteins. Once we identify from the millions, the hundreds of millions, to just zoom in to around tens of thousands, then move to those novel proteins to the wet lab. And then in the wet lab, we can generate. Then in the wet lab, from those novel proteins, we zoom into much more potential candidates and generate the antibodies, peptides, enzymes, cell, and gene therapies to meet potential therapeutic needs. We found the power to combine the traditional wet lab and the dry lab with the computational biology. But at the same time, we humbly understand that Amgen, we cannot do that by ourselves. So the recent cases, we started the partnership with the industry leaders in the dry lab. Those are Generate Biomedicines and also Mila. So we expect with leveraging the power of the machine learning and AI, it really can speed up the drug discovery. So with the good marriage from the wet lab and the dry lab, we do see the drug discovery can have a speed and scale. So let's start to learn from other companies. Let's just take the sequence by our seats. How about Jerish, in your company, Roche? How your company leverage the artificial intelligence or digitals, and why that is important for your company?
Thank you so much for the question and for the chance to participate today. So when I think of digital or artificial intelligence, I immediately think of personalized healthcare, right? So if you look at the journey the industry has taken in the last, let's say, 30 years, 30 years ago, most pharma companies are focused on one medicine to treat a lot of people, right? And maybe 30% of those patients don't respond. You've moved forward maybe 10 years, and you have this targeted therapies. So now we're finding ways to identify patients that will respond. So you have a certain type of cancer, we test for a mutation, and if you have it, you take the medicine. And then maybe you don't have that mutation, so you test again, and you take another medicine. Still not great, because a lot of patients don't get access to medicine, and then even the ones that do, maybe it still doesn't work. So if you look at where we are right now, when we think about the cost of sequencing has come down so much, our focus as a company is to get a complete genomic profile for every single patient. And first and foremost, that's testing for, let's say, 300 mutations. So maybe one test, you can figure out one of 10 medicines to take. But what's really exciting is the work we've been focusing on with Foundation Medicine, which is a company that we own. And that's if you can combine the genetic profile for hundreds of patients or hundreds of thousands of patients, and you know what treatments were tried and what happened to those patients, you can arm the doctors with that much more knowledge, right? So it's not just their medical training and expertise. It's not just what the medical reps are telling them from pharmaceutical companies. It's seeing all that data and then choosing, right? I see the profiles of these 500 patients that have the exact same mutation as my patient, and let me make the best decision. And so we're doing that here in Taiwan, right? So we have a really large demo project with the National Health Research Institute, where we're trying to get a few thousand patients sequenced, and then let's see what happens, right? Hopefully, we see across those patients, a lot more of them do better. Even more hopefully, we see the healthcare system cost go down, right? So I know budget's a big issue always. How can we make more use of the budget? And ultimately, this is the bedrock on which every startup company can build, right? This is data on which you can build the next drug or the next device that might help a patient. So that's what I'm excited about. And ultimately, that's what AI is doing for us, is helping us comb through that data and making it more useful to everyone.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you, Joyce, for the question, and I think great explanation here from my colleague from Roche. I think when it comes to AstraZeneca, I would like to maybe shift gears a little bit. I mean, there's two elements to it. I think there's an internal aspect, which I think has been talked about quite a bit in terms of drug development. And I think when it comes to our internal drug development, there is a lot of energy that is basically being put in terms of how we shift basically the paradigm. Rather than focusing on treatment of disease, how do we understand the biology of the disease to such an extent that we can actually design treatments that can help to prevent or modify or even in the future hopefully cure some of the most devastating diseases. So internally, a lot of our R&D energy is going into that direction. I think when it comes to our partnership here in Taiwan, I think it's more the external aspect of AI, machine learning, big data that we've been working on. Because I think as a company in AstraZeneca, we want to really think beyond the medicines that we develop. And we want to really look at the ecosystems that surround the disease and understanding as well how we can address every element in that ecosystem, starting from better diagnosis and earlier diagnosis, which in many cases is going to completely shift the prognosis for the patient in itself as well. So a lot of the energy that we've been putting here in Taiwan and obviously the collaborations with NBRP, but also with ITRI, has been around really creating this sort of platform where new startups can come in, pitch their ideas. So scouting ideas has been something we've been working on for a few years. but then also how we mentor them to grow from ideation to ultimately an idea that is implementable and after proof of concept that can be scaled to a broader sort of healthcare situation, right, and healthcare system. And I think the last thing is, I think when it comes to that scaling, sometimes it is very important for healthcare practitioners and healthcare organizations to be able to see the solution before they can really think about how they apply it within their own centers. And so last year, we actually very proudly, together with ITRI, or at ITRI I should say, inaugurated a Future Healthcare Lab, which actually showcases a full disease management model for asthma and COPD. And so it's a place where we're expecting more than 150 keys to be able to go and visit and see the whole disease management model, and hopefully then create that trigger that they then are interested to bring that back to their own healthcare organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. And I think, Joyce, before I jump in to basically answer the question about digital, right, and also innovation, including AI, I do want to take the chance to introduce Merck a little bit, because I'm not too sure for all of you who is in the crowd today, how many of you are aware that Merck and Merck Sharp & Dohme, Merck & Co. is not the same company. So I am representing Merck from Germany. We are actually a 354 years company, very long history, and you know, to be able to sustain for so many generations, innovation, curiosity is the DNA of the company. And and we are not just a healthcare company. I think this is also what I want to introduce, right? We are not just a healthcare company. Merck actually have 3 business sectors besides healthcare that I am working for. We are also in life science. Many of you who are still doing research in your lab, you might have been using one of the many 300,000 products that we have from Millipore, from Sigma Aldrich. These are all belonging to lab, to Merck. So we are basically helping to solve challenging science questions. And the last business sector that we have, very interesting, especially after listening to Chairman Shi, is actually our electronic business sector. We are the world's largest producer of liquid crystal, neither iPhone, neither iPad. The liquid crystal etching is from Merck, and it is actually produced in Taoyuan, by the way. So we are a very big player in ICT. We actually are one of the major material supplier working very closely with the semiconductor industry as well. So when I basically put all these 3 business sectors together, right? Healthcare, life science, and electronic, and we look at, Taiwan, the ecosystem that we talk about, the strategic industry that the government are focusing on, is ICT, is biomedicine, is precision health. This is actually where the ICT meets bio. Very, very interesting. So if I want to go and answer that question about digital technology and digital innovation, let me also share that as a group, Merck Group, we as a science and technology company have shared externally that one of the key enterprise priorities is innovation powered by data and digital. And when we say powered by data and digital, it is not just looking into incremental innovation, but we really want to challenge ourselves to really go for bold, pioneering innovation. I actually have this technology helping me to look into this talking point because it's too exciting and I do not want to miss that. So allow me to also look at my note as I share this, right? There's 4 innovation fields that we want to look at, really not just in sector, but cross-sector. Cross-sector among healthcare, life science, electronics. Number 1 is really biotechnology, looking into genetic engineering, novel biological delivery modes. We also look into next generation chips. We are talking about quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, high energy efficient chips. If we want to talk about AI, etc., you need all these chips to be efficient to really help. We also look at next generation code, AI, big data ecosystem, blockchain technology, and last but not least, we also focusing on human and machine interfaces, AR, bioelectronics, brain and computer interface. Big thing, very bold. That's why I make it very exciting. To be able to do that, we know that this is not possible just one company. This is where partnership, collaboration, external innovation have to work together. So the example that Chairman Shi have presented earlier, where ICT company come in to really share their knowledge, share their technology in the biomedical field is something what we want to continue doing. And we see this opportunity in Taiwan broadly. Please allow me to just use one example of this innovation field that is actually bioelectronics. Very exciting. It's basically implantable devices where we actually have chips implanted close to vagus nerve. We already have project team working on this project. Globally, it is very early stage, moving into clinical development hopefully, but we are looking into impulses, electrical impulses, right, to basically complement and treat diseases, chronic diseases like COPD and the rest. We also want to be able to have better, more efficient chips, smaller chips, better electrode that have not just closed loop system, but hopefully open loop system that allow that physician treating this patient getting back the data on real time so that they can make decision treating this patient on a personalized manner as well. This is just one of the examples. So I'm calling on, if any one of you are working on this space, biosensor, I've been talking to a few, we are working a lot in Taiwan in this space. Let's work together, right, to really, progress, advancing humans progress together. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Recently, I just had the opportunity to learn the company, Merck Group, because it's a family business, but how that can be that sustainable, durable company and successful companies in the past 300 years. I think each of our companies are, we are different, but through the COVID, I do see there are more open and more collaborations across the companies, industries, and even across the different countries. And I would like to learn from, let's start from Bernd. How's the drug development, the focus in Merck?
If I zoom straight to just talking about drug development alone, maybe I can also start by life science. Because when we look at life science and healthcare, life science and healthcare is at the whole biomedical value chain and patient journey, right? In life science, we actually have helped, especially during the COVID pandemic, work with more than 80 companies globally in the research and development and manufacturing of COVID-19 therapeutics and vaccine. So AZ, we are also partnering with AZ, BioNT, etc., for all this development. So when we talk about mRNA, everyone are very interested now, right? Especially in Taiwan, a lot of people are talking about mRNA development. So life science, we are one of the major producer and manufacturer of lipid that needed in mRNA. This is one of the core development area that we will continue to focus on. So any one of you who are interested to look into mRNA technologies, the whole value chain, please welcome to speak to us. I might not be the expert, but we do have experts at global level that we can connect. We also own technologies in CRISPR-Cas9, gene editing. This is really exciting future for life science that I can quote as 2 examples. But if I can go into healthcare for drug development, we are very focused. Merck Healthcare, we are not the largest pharma company, if you want to put it that way, okay? We are one of the largest medium-sized pharma. So we're very clear. Focused leadership is actually what we are looking at, the principle in research and development. We will focus on 3 to 4 areas: oncology, immuno-oncology, immunology, and neurology. Very clear. And for cancer, we focus on lung cancer, GU cancer, head and neck cancer. What others? Lung cancer, of course. And of course, for neurology is in multiple sclerosis, 多发性硬化症. This is the one word I learned in Taiwan, by the way, 多发性硬化症. Rare disease, but globally it's a very important disease that is that we need to do better for the patients and also for SLE. So we're very focused. So if any of you are working on this space, this disease area, we want to see the work that you're doing. We want to understand where we can collaborate. If I can go a little bit more on very quickly, especially for oncology and immuno-oncology, a few areas that we're focusing on, right, is on oncogenic signaling. We also look into DDR, DNA damage response, ATR, ATM, DNA PK. We are looking into T and NK cell biology, myeloid cell biology, ADC. I think many of the companies are probably working on the same thing. But yes, if you are working on this space, you are welcome to speak to us. So I'm actually glad that we actually have global partners who are doing the one-to-one partnering with some of you tomorrow. So do share the work that you're doing with them. Thank you. Thanks, Joyce.
Thanks, Boone. And Claudio, share with us the drug development focus in AstraZeneca.
Yeah, sure, Joyce. Thank you. You know, I think first and foremost, I think when we talk about drug development, I think it's important to understand, just like I think my colleague here explained very well, what are the priority disease areas that we focus on within AstraZeneca. I think it's always a good starting point. So in AstraZeneca, we actually have, let's call it a 4+1 disease area. So we have oncology, which is, of course, an area of massive unmet need, and I think where a lot of innovation is needed. We also have a therapy area of cardiovascular, renal, and metabolic diseases. And I was actually quite inspired to see Mr. Xi's presentation talking about how retina scans can actually help to diagnose. And I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities as well to look at complications of diabetes and find early diagnosis of those patients to very non-interventional and non-invasive approaches. So cardiovascular, renal, metabolic is a second one. Our third one is respiratory and immunology. And then our fourth one is actually to our acquisition of Alexion last year. We also entered into the rare disease space. Our +1 obviously is the vaccine, right? I think, as you all know, through our partnership with Oxford in the UK, when the pandemic happened, you know, AstraZeneca had this opportunity to help the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine to get very global. And I think moving on from that, I actually want to think a little bit further in terms of what drug delivery means. Ultimately, it means how quickly can we bring an idea in the lab to ultimately patients in the market. And I think if the vaccine, the pandemic, has learned us anything, is that we can move as an industry, in partnership, of course, with governments and regulators, but we can move much faster in many cases. I mean, the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine has been able to deliver more than 2.5 billion doses in just 18 months to more than 180 countries. See, all the companies are supporting each other. So yes, thank you very much. So if we learn anything through the pandemic, it is that we can move really fast and that we can actually reach patients all across the globe. And it is with this idea of how we can accelerate from ideation to ultimately product on the market and product approval that we are thinking a lot about how we can change the way we run our clinical programs as well in the countries, how we recruit patients. And we have a very exciting example, which we have been kicking off last year, which is with TriNetX as a platform, which helps HCOs to identify multi-site trials, to develop study protocols, to even pursue grants, and ultimately, but not unimportantly, to harness the immense data that is available in a healthcare system, like here in Taiwan, where you have electronic medical records, how we can use and leverage that data to really create the real-world evidence studies that are needed to understand how medicines are working in a real-life setting. So this is actually, I guess, a little bit in terms of the initiatives that we are running. Thank you, Joyce.
And actually, there is another example. Amgen, we collaborate with AstraZeneca for the asthma medicines. We co-developed that medicines, and also then to let AstraZeneca to do the commercializations outside of the U.S. Yeah, that is also another case how even the multinational companies, we collaborate with each other. Thank you, Claudio. And Girish, share with us.
Which mic do you want?
The one that works, huh? Is this working?
Yeah, so many mics.
I think, is that good? I think so. All right. Well, I was going to impress you by saying our company is 125 years old, but I mean, Boone's got me beat on that.
Very old.
But no, so Roche is a very strongly R&D focused company, right? So it's not a common household name, but you know, it's the biggest investor in healthcare in the world, right? So we last year invested $14 billion in research across 17 different centers. And I make that point because we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we use that money efficiently, right? Just because there's a lot of it, it doesn't mean we waste it. And so, you know, one big trend is if you look at, you know, maybe 10 years ago, there was most companies were doing really large, slow, conservative studies, right? So if it's asthma, maybe you start with a big asthma study. If it works, then maybe you do some sort of a skin study, and if that works. And so it's safe, but it delays how long it takes the medicine to get to patients, right? So now our focus really is we invest much more heavily early on many small studies, and we make better use of those studies, right? We collect a lot more data with the idea of either quickly advancing a compound or quickly killing it so we can put our money into something else that might work better. And so this allows us to continually learn whether or not a medicine works in the study. We build off that knowledge base. Point number two is the types of medicines that we study are quite different now. So traditionally, there's a big focus on trying to find a statistically significant outcome, right? To see a number that goes from 10 to 20. You know, as costs add up in a healthcare system, you quickly realize it's not good enough to have a drug that is better on paper, right? We need to be able to show that a patient's life is better or we're saving the healthcare system money. It's not good enough to have an academic result. And so that informs how we do clinical development now. So it's very common when we make decisions on drugs, we look at the data, and when we're honest with ourselves, if we can't show that it's making a substantial improvement in a patient's life, we just kill the drug. We don't keep going forward. So that's the second big thing, is really around having truly effective medicines. And then the last one, it's a bit different. We talk about this a lot more maybe in the West than here, and it's diversity in clinical trials. So most clinical trials, I'll say historically, but maybe just even 5 years ago, it's mainly Caucasian males that are in those studies. In reality, our patients that we serve are not Caucasian males, right? They're maybe Asians in Taiwan, maybe they're Africans, maybe they're Latino. And so our studies need to represent the patients that we serve. And so here in Taiwan, for example, this is a really large research and development institution for Roche. Part of it's because there's fantastic capabilities and fantastic doctors in Taiwan. But a large part of it also is to make sure we have studies that represent the patients that actually receive the medicines. Because ultimately we want to make sure that they work in the patients that actually receive it. So maybe three themes. I won't get into disease areas. You can look that up. But it's this is how we're changing development at Roche.
Thanks, Girish. And so for Amgen, actually when you search Amgen pipelines, actually you can get all of the details. Our pipelines and clinical research in which phase. So in brief, the therapeutic areas we focus are very similar to other leaders. Actually, they are oncology, hematology, immunology, cardiovascular. But I would like to highlight one uniqueness from Amgen. In the past 42 years, actually the product we launched in the world, 70%, 70, of our launched products are first of a new class. That means a new mechanism, and we are the first one. And I rarely find our launched product actually is a third in that therapeutic area. That means probably we are the first or we are the second. If the current treatments are good enough, actually Amgen is not interested in that area. So this information, maybe for your consideration when you would like to collaborate with Amgen. So the recent, I can elaborate 2 recent cases. The first one is in small cell lung cancer, focused on a rare type mutation. It's a KRAS G12C. And you know, this is just to represent around 1.5% to 5%, according to the different reference. But you can tell it's a very small group of the non-small cell lung cancer. If we focus on the business size, right, we just think about the return. This group of the patient actually is a very small population, but high unmet needs. So again, Amgen, we have launched that product in the US and quite a few of the markets. In Taiwan, we look forward really to help the patient, but actually we have EAP in Taiwan already to treat those, the mutant patients. So this is one of the example, G12C, we are the first and so far the only one have that medicine. And the second one I just learned recently, the molecule is still in the phase 1 and phase 2. That is for small cell lung cancer. And we'll leverage Amgen, our technology is a bispecific T-cell engager, we so-called BiTE technology for small cell lung cancer. And again, small cell lung cancer is around 15% of the total cancer. In the past decade, there are a lot of different target therapies focused on non-small cell lung cancer. But in small cell lung cancer, I think so far the main treatment is still chemotherapy and also the recent immuno-oncology. That's it. So again, Amgen is really focused on those high unmet needs and currently without other solutions for those patients. So small cell lung cancer, again, we have one of the molecule is under phase 1 and phase 2 study. And for these are just the 2 candidates for our developmental medicines. And Taiwan, we are all involved in the clinical trials. So we are all involved in the phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials. At this stage, more than 10 of the clinical research Amgen we conducted in Taiwan. So again, we value the capability, the quality for the clinical research here, and also we arrange the pitching for many years with the NBRP, because we find the innovation, the great idea, and the quality people in the country here. We want to continue this kind of the collaborations from Amgen headquarters and with the local biotech industry. And as I know, this year, we also, our R&D VP, he also may review around more than 15 cases in the pitching. So again, the third example I want to highlight here is not just in the clinical trial, but also with this long-range collaborations, we find the good opportunities to work together. One example is with the DCB. So in 2020, when the COVID outbreak, I think all of the clinical research, the labs were closed around the world. And because Amgen headquarters, we knew that Taiwan, actually at that time, we controlled the COVID nicely. And we don't want to stop any drug development. So immediately, Philip Tagari, he reached out to Taiwan, to DCB to see, hey, can you help us to continue screening those proteins? And then we started these collaborations, and hopefully we can continue this kind of the model and to connect the Taiwan biotech industry with the global R&D. So that's a sharing from my end, and I would like to to get back to Deputy Director here.
Okay, so I think there is also the real opportunity to have the four general manager on the same place. So I think we're going maybe have some short question, or we'll open the floor to the audience. So if you can feel free to ask any question or share any thought from our speaker. Please hold this rare opportunity. That Joyce said they will have the G12C, the inhibitor. I know that it's AMG 510. So if you hold this opportunity, ask them question. Yeah.
I saw someone up. Yeah.
Hi, Sherry.
Question for Joyce. Of course, in January of this year, there's a big announcement with your collaboration with Generate Biomedicine. I was wondering, because that is a computational generation of protein sequences around a certain target. I believe you have 5 such targets that identified. I was wondering how this activity integrate with your own R&D in terms of generation of protein leads.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And certainly I can connect you with our global R&D to give you better, more insight. But from the understanding for my company, Amgen is a very open culture. We embrace the collaborations. We think in this VUCA world, we need to collaborate across different industries. But certainly, you know, American, they have a very clear IP mindset, right? So as I know, that is an exciting collaboration with the Generate Biomedicines. And we clearly identified what are the research areas these two companies, Amgen and the Generate Biomedicines, we may focus on. But also at the same time, the reason we choose them is because we really appreciate their strengths and the capabilities in the machine learning and also in the artificial intelligence. But at the same time, we know Amgen, we have our capabilities, our know-how in protein engineering. So hopefully this answers your question.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Philippe. I'm from the Belgian office in Taipei. A question to each of you guys, in fact, because Belgium has a lot of, pharmaceutical industry presence. AstraZeneca is manufacturing a lot of your COVID vaccines in Belgium as well. So I was wondering, we were told by the Taiwanese government that clinical trial for Asia happens a lot in Taiwan. I was just wondering whether you can confirm that, because that will be a very interesting, it's an interesting secret for the industry, at least from a European perspective. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, who would like to start? Yeah.
No, so yes, and I think it's probably true for everyone here. I think the thing to just comment on is, maybe in popular culture, there's a misunderstanding of where we do clinical trials, right? So maybe there's a feeling that we go to underdeveloped areas, a lot of people are going to join the study. In reality, studies happen where the capabilities are very high of the healthcare institutions. And in Taiwan, that is substantial, right? We're not just doing real-world data kind of post-approval studies here. I think most of us are doing kind of fundamental, like phase 1, phase 2 type studies here, and it's because we have an extremely high confidence that the studies will be properly carried out. And in many cases, some of the Taiwanese key doctors, they're the lead investigators, right? So we have a really large study in hepatic cell cancer that was headed out of Taiwan. So it's I hope it's not a secret, because it actually is something to be very proud of, that Taiwan has this capability.
And I think I can confirm that. No, it is true actually what you say, right? Is the quality of the clinical studies or outcome that is really good. And I think that a lot of the key investigators and doctors in Taiwan are renowned in their field too. We actually have a lot of lung cancer experts that are not just renowned in Taiwan, but globally. So the answer is yes. This is a very good place where a lot of studies, clinical studies, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 are being done. So we can confirm that. Not a secret.
I also can confirm that. And actually, clinical research is a public information in Taiwan. You can search the registrations in Taiwan as well. And because I think from the multinational company's perspective, here is a great place to operate clinical research because of the capabilities. And also, no matter it's from phase 1 to phase 3, you know, sometimes you need to enroll like 50 patients. It's not impossible. It is impossible like in Singapore, because Singapore cannot help you to enroll like in one country 50 the patients enrollment. So I think Taiwan have that good combination in the early phase. Recently, we demonstrate stronger capabilities to be selected to have even first in human trial in Taiwan. But also at the same time to keep the balance. If some phase 3 study, they need broader populations to be enrolled in Taiwan, we can contribute as well. And more realistically, I think the cost relatively in Taiwan is quite attractive for the MNC company to decide to invest the clinical trials in Taiwan.
Yeah, maybe last comment from my side, if that's all right. Maybe a few numbers for you to take away from AstraZeneca perspective, but we have just under 500 people working in Taiwan, and roughly 1/5 of those are actually working in our site monitoring department, right? So they are actually running clinical trials day in, day out. Last year we had more than 80 clinical trials running actively in Taiwan, and all of them, or most of them, are preclinical, right? So they're all in phase 2, phase 3 setting, some of them even earlier. So it's, as I think all of my colleagues said, it's not a secret. I think Taiwan is very much known and respected for the high quality of clinical research that can be done. Last point, we need to have a chat because I'm actually a Belgian national, so maybe we can connect afterwards. Thank you.
So due to the time limit, let's give a big applause for General Manager.
All right, thank you very much for the moderation and all panelists. 谢谢我们这场的贵宾。那我们请各位一起起身哦，一起面对我们前方，帮各位拍一张照片。The group photo will be taken on the stage. Please face forward. Now after this, we still have the very special gift to be presented. 那么在合影之后呢，我们还是有礼物要致赠给与会的4位座谈贵宾啊。好，请看前方哦。好，来一个 thumbs up， OK。Everybody, thumbs up. That's very Taiwanese regular sign. Thank you very much. Okay, double thumbs up. Okay, love, sweetheart, small heart, and okay, someone got victory. Okay, victory. Okay, that's fine. As we said, 谢谢。好，接下来呢，我们大会有礼物要致赠给4位贵宾，我们请主持人我们努力来致赠。第一位先给 ，OK， 这是我们 co-host 今天刚刚座谈会的共同主持人了啊。OK， 非常感谢。好 ，OK， 第二位可是我们的这是 OK 好，也非常谢谢余文慧总经理。好，第3位。Okay, any one of you? Okay, please forward. Thank you. Face forward. Thank you very much. Nice. Okay, thank you. And the last one. 好，我们再次的用掌声来谢谢我们4位语坛贵宾，好不好？谢谢谢夫人的主持，谢谢。好，请各位回座。好，各位女士、各位先生，我们现在时间是3点26分哦。我们下一个场次呢，将在3点40分开始，所以将大概有15分钟的时间，让大家可以稍微做一点休息。同时，在我们的外场呢，有准备简单的餐点、点心，各位可以自由交易、联谊或交换一下名片。同时呢，我们在1楼展区有海报展，有那个各种展示的地方，还有我们有一些教育中心呢，也可以欢迎大家进行参观。只要记得在3点40分再回到我们现场，将与我们欧洲的几位专家呢进行线上的远距会议。下一场时间是在3点40分开始，再次邀请各位准时回到我们会场来，谢谢各位。
好的，非常欢迎各位回来到我们的这个现场哦，不管是在我们的会议室里面，或是在我们直播线上的这个会场。那接下来呢，要进行的这个论坛是欧洲生医新创论坛。在这个论坛里面呢，我们总共会有3个 speech， 总共有4位讲者，分别从比利时、荷兰以及法国来，大家看看欧洲生医产业目前发展的一个境况哦。那在过去2年的时间里面，我们不太能够 travel around the world， 所以希望大家可以趁着这样子的一个机会，一探欧洲生医产业目前现在发展的一个境况哦。所以在我们的活动一开始，让我们以热烈的掌声欢迎我们中央研究院生医转译研究中心的洪伟仁顾问来为我们介绍今天的讲者。
各位来宾大家好，Bonsoir à tous，好的middag。Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is William Hong, a consultant of NBRP. Welcome join the European Biomedicine Startups Forum. COVID-19 pandemic shocked the globe and took away many lives. Hundreds of thousands of scientists and entrepreneurs try very hard to develop products to screen, to treat, and to prevent the disease. As everybody has aware, the biotech and pharmaceutical company from Europe play very important roles to fight against the pandemic. Today, it is our great honor to invite representatives from Belgium, from the Netherlands and France to introduce the ecosystem and how their countries foster biotech companies. It is my great pleasure to introduce the speaker of the session. First, Mr. Marc Deschamps, International Affairs Representative by WIN, the health cluster of Wallonia, Belgium. Mr. Deschamps. Hi. And the second speaker, Dr. Mehdi Ozer, the Senior Industry Specialist in Life Sciences, Wallonia Export Investment Agency, Belgium. Hi, Mr. Ozer. Is Mr. Ozer here? Hi. And the third speaker, Dr. Friso Smit, Business Development Manager at Utrecht Science Park Foundation, Netherlands. Hi, Dr. Smit. Oh, he's not here, right? Okay. And last but not of least important, Mr. Jonathan Drubay, Advisor for Innovation and Advanced Technology, France. Mr. Drubay. Hi. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, I heard you. And special thanks to Mr. Philip Zhou. Hi. Who helped to invite several speakers for the section. Due to time constraint, the detailed bio of speakers have been attached in the brochure. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's start this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hope you can see my screen. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is really my pleasure to have the possibility today to present Belgium. Belgium is a vibrant and attractive health and life science ecosystem located really in the center of Europe. And today, together with my colleague, Mr. Mehdi Ozer, we will go through all the elements which are really composing actually this biopharma hub, describing why Belgium is a biopharma hub, describing also BioWe, which is the biocluster of the southern part of Belgium, and having the possibility to showcase the diverse and growing life science ecosystem before moving to Mr. Ozer, explaining the European market access, the clinical trials actually process, which is very performing in Belgium, and explaining why a project from Taiwan will be very welcome to Belgium. So my first introduction will be about the innovation hub of Belgium. Since decades now, Belgium is recognized as a very strong ecosystem. And why is it so? You see four, let's say, blocks in the bottom of the slide. The first one represents the world-class academic and research centers we have all across Belgium. The next one is showing you all the biotech, SME startups, some of them. We have more than 200 actually important biotech and medtech companies in Belgium today. But you can certainly recognize some of the names you have here in this block. But we have also the presence of the large pharma companies. So I don't speak about local operating companies. I speak about headquarters, R&D sites, manufacturing sites, facilities, like Janssen Pharmaceutica, Johnson & Johnson, like UCB, like GSK Vaccines, which was originally a Walloon Belgian company. We have also Pfizer in Puurs, which was the main site for the production of the COVID-19 vaccines, together with BioNTech, the main European site producing all the vaccines for Europe and beyond, and some others. And next to that, and this is really necessary for making sure that an ecosystem can work, we have a lot of suppliers, service providers, legal, regulatory, logistic, biologistic, but also big CDMOs, contract development manufacturing organization in our country, with recent important investment of Thermo Fisher Scientific, of Catalan Biology, and also companies, Belgian companies developing very fast now, like the group of Universals and others. So the Belgian R&D model is really characterized by the strong integration and collaboration between the university and the industry. But what is really important also, it is strongly supported by the government, the federal government, but also the regional governments. And we have an interesting combination of regulatory measures, but also tax measures, and also incentives for biopharma R&D. And this is the reason why we have a very strong ecosystem since decades now in Belgium. And so specifically moving to the biocluster, to BioWin, the health competitiveness cluster of the southern part of Belgium. We were funded in 2006, and the idea was really to stimulate and create a new economy for the region, and to have this positive impact on the society through health innovation. And now we can showcase Wallonia as a world-class life science research environment for cell and gene therapy, for vaccines and biology, but also for healthcare innovation. And clearly, what is the DNA of BioWin is this collaborative innovation between all the stakeholders and the value chain representative we have in the ecosystem. And so the mission is really to accelerate innovation, to meet the public health challenge we are confronted with today, whether it is for a pandemic like COVID-19, but also all the other health challenges, and to develop the knowledge, the employment, the competitiveness of all players in our ecosystem in Wallonia. And BioWin is really gathering, fostering all initiative, collaborative initiative, and I spoke about the value chain a while ago. So we gather all the stakeholders in that ecosystem in the biocluster. So we have the regional government and the trade agency. We have the capital providers, whether they are public or private. We have all types of companies, so small, medium, very large enterprise. We have educational institutions and universities, but also the research institutes and the hospitals. And the role of BioWin is really to connect all the stakeholders within the cluster, but also connect internationally with other clusters and incubators like we do today with all of you. And thank you again for this opportunity in global markets where it makes sense and where we can find very powerful synergies. So the services provided by the BioCluster to our members are collaborative research innovation projects. This is really the starting point of BioIN. We support also the scale-up of our startups and small enterprises, the international development, the talent development, because it is a very fast developing ecosystem, so we constantly need to generate new talent, but also to reskill or upskill some talents coming from other industries join us in this life science journey, and also the communication, as you can imagine. And the strategic areas we have in Belgium and in Wallonia in particular is the biopharmacy, as I mentioned already. It includes cell and gene therapy and the biomanufacturing and the production of vaccines in particular, but not just biologics in general. We have clearly a medical device in vitro diagnostic. What is particular to Wallonia, we have a critical mass of companies in radiation applied to health and digital. And the two strategic objectives of BioIN are continue to accelerate the development of the industrial production of vaccines and biologics, biomanufacturing in general in Wallonia, and to recreate a global hub for this production. And the second one is really to make Wallonia a champion in the field of health innovation. And access to data, as you know, is very critical now to improve the personalized approach of the patients with regard to medicines. And so really to unify the hospitals and the companies to capitalize on the recent development in this specific sector. And just to show you the dynamic and the fast growing aspect of this ecosystem, we have on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see that we have more than 50,000 people working directly or indirectly for these sectors. If you just look to the direct employment between 2005 and 2020, we doubled the number of people working directly in this sector. So meaning moving from 10,000 to 20,000 direct FTEs in the sector. And why is it so? You can see actually on the right-hand side of the slide that the private money, this is cumulative here, the private money injected into the ecosystem, into our companies, is really booming for the moment. Because we started in 2005 with 33 million euros, and now cumulatively, we reach in 2021 more than 4 billion euros, and with an acceleration which started in 2014, as you can notice on the slide. And so the employment and the injection of the private money in our ecosystem are, as you can see, progressing really in parallel and very fast now. Looking to the members of the ecosystem, more than 90% of the health, biotech, and medtech players in Wallonia are really members of BioIN. And as you can see, we have 12 global leaders. I mentioned GSK Vaccines, Takeda is investing a lot in Wallonia today. We have Catalan Biologics, we have Thermo Fisher, UCB, so it is Pfizer Animal Health, Polypeptides, Cenexi, Eurogentech, but also, as I said, we have world leader in radiation applied to health, so IBA in proton therapy and IRA for the production of radioisotopes. But the bulk of the members are the innovative SMEs. And next to that, you have the 400 research units from the 5 universities we have in our region. And on top of that, 20,000 hospital beds, so you can start, and you will see with Mr. Roser later on, you can start very quickly your clinical trials. We have 11,000 researchers and 1,700 graduates per million inhabitants, which is by far higher than what you have, for instance, in the US. And so just for your leisure, when you will receive the presentation, you can see some testimonials. So Mr. Alioua on the right-hand side is a French guy, and he decided to start the company in Belgium and in Wallonia because of the quality of the ecosystem and the support. And Mr. Tas is CEO and co-founder of Neuropath, which is a company based in Belgium, but also in Chicago for digital health. And he took profit actually of research innovation project and the support BioIn was given. So you have a lot of services and possibilities within the ecosystem highlighted by these two testimonials. And now it's time for me to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Oza. Mehdi?
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And a big thank you to the organizer for having us today. So my name is Mehdi Ozir. I'm a life sciences specialist at AWEX, the Wallonia Export and Investment Agency. And now that Mark has explained how strong and rich is the biopharma ecosystem in Belgium and Wallonia, I'm going to give you an overview of what it could mean to you and to your company. Next slide, please, Mark. Thank you. First, the location in Europe. So Wallonia is the French-speaking part in the south of Belgium. Actually, Belgium is on the top 4 for the density of road and railway network. We also have maritime ports in the north of the country and 2 airports that are certified for pharma transport. One of them, Liège Airport, was actually voted best air cargo of the year during the pandemic. And as an example, we work with a US company who is active in a CAR-T, and they wanted to evaluate the reach for their markets. And we showed them that actually 66% of their customer market could be reached within 6 hours, which means UK, France, Germany. And finally, they decided to settle in Belgium. Next slide, please. Regarding market authorization, it's like everywhere in Europe. There are 4 procedures available: national, decentralized, centralized, and mutual recognition. I won't have, unfortunately, time to go into the details, but you should know that the expertise of the Federal Agency for Medicines and Health Products in Belgium is highly recognized, and that Belgian experts are often asked to evaluate market authorization coming from all over Europe. Next slide, please. The topic is, of course, clinical trials. Belgium is actually a top country for clinical trials in Europe. In terms of number of clinical trials per inhabitant, Belgium is actually number 2 in Europe and in the world. 12% of the new clinical studies launched in Europe are actually conducted in Belgium. In 2020, there were more than 500 clinical trials that were approved. Belgium has the fastest approval rate for phase 1 clinical trial in Europe. So in only two weeks, you could be up and running. It means that you can find strong infrastructure, high quality staff, services, and patients for the whole clinical studies. This effectiveness is largely due to a strong cooperation between companies, university hospitals, and of course, regulatory agency and ethics committee. So if you need to conduct clinical trials in Europe, it might be beneficial to consider Belgium. Next slide, please. In particular, you will have to follow the new clinical trial regulation. It entered into application on the 31st of January 22. BICRO, which is the Belgian Association for Contract Research Organizations, really closely followed this legislation and all the companies in this association. And in that nutshell, if by doing your clinical trial in Belgium or Wallonia, you can benefit from a rich ecosystem where you can find informed and competent partners, whatever it is, CROs, CDMOs, regulatory advice, GDPR, legal. And we have attached here a recent study from Deloitte about Belgium as a clinical trial location. It's on the pharma.be site. Next slide, please. Should you want to start a business in Belgium, our regional authorities have put in place many aids that may help you. And through our agency, we can provide assistance at every step of your project. So there are some aid regarding investment that can be up to 20%. There are also some R&D incentives, either for industrial research or for experimental development. There are 8 for employment, recruiting staff, finding the right profiles, doing salary simulations, finding the right training, and even employment cost reduction that can give an average over a 4-year period of 11%. And finally, we can also help regarding export and access some foreign markets. Next slide, please. When settling in Belgium, it is also possible to reduce costs thanks to existing tax measures. Belgium fiscal environment is actually one of the most attractive in Europe, especially for companies doing R&D. The corporate tax rate can be defined several years in advance, and there are tax measures covering innovation costs, researchers' salaries, tax regime for expatriates, and so on. And finally, it's also very easy to start a company in Belgium, so in a few days you can be up and running. Next slide, please. Thank you. Starting a company, you will find dedicated biotech and medtech scientific parks that are actually strong hubs where you can find global companies, SMEs. They are often affiliated to university or hospital, and you can also find public and private investor. And the good thing that given size of Belgium, all those parks are less than 1 hour drive away from each other. Next slide, please. Yeah, another critical element, as explained by Mark, is talent. There are currently 50,000 jobs, direct, indirect, in oil and gas biotech. But actually, Belgium is the 2nd country in the world for development of biopharma talents. And we have several projects in the pipe, such as building a European biotech campus that should strengthen even more this capacity of training. Actually, compared to the US, there are 20% more researchers per 1,000 employees in Belgium. The workforce is skilled, multilingual, with a high productivity rate. And given the very good living standards in Belgium and the low cost of living, it makes our country quite an attractive place to stay. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying, our agency can help you through the whole journey in settling activities in Europe. And you should know that our services are free of charge. Next slide. So here are 2 testimonials from large companies that we helped, Lonza and Takeda. And now they are fully integrated and active in our ecosystem, as mentioned by Mark. Next slide, and actually I think it's the final one. Yes, thank you. If you have questions to Mark and me, please do not hesitate. In the future, do not hesitate to reach out to us or to Philippe Zhu, who is our counselor in Taiwan. And thank you so much for your attention. We wish you a lot of success.
Okay, thank you. We would like to open questions for on-site attendees. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if you doesn't have a question right now, we also have some contact information in our brochure. So if you have any further inquiry, you also can write an email to them. Thanks again for our speakers. And continuing, we would like to invite the second speech, which is from Netherlands, is Mr. Friso Smit. Thank you. Okay, for the next speech, we would like to invite Friso Smit, the Business Development Manager, Strategic Theme Life Sciences UU-UMCU from Stichting Utrecht Science Park. Okay.
You can see my slides.
Yes, we can see your slide clearly.
Try if I can put it in. Screen. So I would like to elaborate with you on choosing the Netherlands as a hub to start your biomedical business in Europe. And see, yeah. So why is the Netherlands such an interesting place to start your business? And yeah, I think most important is the gateway to Europe. Just similar to the previous speaker, Belgium, also the Netherlands has access to 95% of Europe's most lucrative consumer markets, just nearby. And if you look at the strengths of the Netherlands in terms of what could be triggers for you to establish your company, your biotech company here in the Netherlands, first of all, the strategic location, as I explained before. Also, the international business climate is very well developed. We also have superior logistics and technology infrastructure in the Netherlands, competitive fiscal climate, a very highly skilled, productive and multilingual workforce, political and economic stability, and exceptional quality of life, and also innovative key industries. And if you look at the Global Innovation Index from 29, then you see that the Netherlands scores pretty high, number 6 worldwide and number 2 within the European Union. And that incorporates metrics like political environment, education, infrastructure, and business sophistication. But I think even more important, at least from the perspective of Science Park that I represent, is the industry university R&D collaboration, which scores pretty high in the Netherlands. Number 5 and also 2nd in the European Union. And that is a topic I would like to explore a little bit further on. Because the reason why that is so interesting is because of the density of the Science Park communities within the Netherlands. We have 10 major Science Park hubs in the countries that are more or less within a circle of 200 kilometers, so very close by, and there is a lot of interaction as well between those different innovation hubs. If you look at the number of jobs in the national campuses that I just mentioned, then you see that Utrecht Science Park has the largest community. 27,000 people are working here, but only 2,000 are active in the private sector. And that creates a very huge potential for companies to work together with universities here and other research institutes to adopt research, adopt talents that are developed here to work together in R&D projects to bring new innovations to the market. And I would like to spend some time on Utrecht Science Park just as an example. And it might be illustrative for other science parks in the Netherlands as well. In Utrecht, we focus on research. So it is really an R&D campus that spreads a total area of 300 hectares. But next to research, we combine that, of course, with education. We have more than 50,000 students on the campus. In combination with clinical care, we have several hospitals here, and in combination with entrepreneurship. We have incubator programs and incubator buildings for startup that work together with the research institutes.
So you see it is in the middle of a green area. It's just outside of the city of Utrecht, which is very centrally located in the Netherlands. We have a separate site that is very close by, just a few kilometers, 3 kilometers in fact, and that focuses on development and manufacturing, because in the previous site that I showed you on the previous slide, we focus on research. Here we focus on translating new innovation opportunities, new technologies, specifically in the field of biotherapeutics, to production in several manufacturing facilities that we have. In total, we have about 12 research companies and more than 130 companies. And what we do focus on as well is supporting business development. So we have a very strong focus on facilitating public-private partnerships. So our Science Park organization works as a kind of front office for companies that are interested to work together with our scientists and our students. And we have all kinds of services that we can facilitate to boost and to stimulate that public-private collaboration. And this is a very schematic overview of how we support companies. That could be startups that spin out from the knowledge institutes in the seed phase, but it could also be entrepreneurs or startup companies from outside the Science Park or from Taiwan or other countries. In fact, we have quite some experience in the last years with a soft landing program for Taiwanese companies that are interested to start their activities here, to start activities in Europe, and then we can facilitate them, facilitate accommodation, access to talent, or even facilitate training programs, access to funding, access to research infrastructure and research expertise, but also connections to other companies to come up with possibilities to bring your product to the market. Just an example, we have an innovation lab that acts as a co-working space where we bring together scientists, students, and companies in a co-working environment. So the idea here is for early startups to have access to fully equipped lab environment or production environment without any major investments to make for the company itself. So they will be part of an R&D community. And then if a startup grows more independently, and then we have, for example, this incubator building and also other facilities where they can rent their own labs and offices to bring their development further. And we are working on several multi-tenant buildings. This one is under construction. It will be operational within a few years' time. And we have another multi-tenant building that is just opened and that is already fully rented. For this building, there is still capacity available. So this is just an illustration of how we want to facilitate growth of companies by facilitating also the space for companies to establish themselves. On a national level, there is also a program to develop leadership and to help companies to start their business. And this is a collaboration with all the different life science hubs together in a national organization. And we work with summer schools, with venture challenges where you can pitch your business case and attract funding from investors. We have education programs and scaling programs. So this could also be of interest for companies that want to take the step to Europe. And specifically in the fields of topics that we are focusing on. The public institutes, the research institutes mentioned here, they work very closely together in certain topics where we have a very strong position in, and also we want to develop our position further. So we have organized ourselves in a in a cluster where we bring all the life science expertise and all the life science research together. Just a couple of examples. One is on One Health. That is the interaction between animal health, human health, and wildlife. That interaction is very important, for example, in the field of emerging infectious diseases. So we monitor those developments and also the transition from wildlife to animals to humans. We also work on smart and healthy farming as a means to contain risks for infectious diseases and also to tackle antimicrobial resistance. So this is a national initiative where a lot of institutes, universities work together to prepare for pandemics like we just are in the final stage of COVID-19. So we prepare to for these kind of events in the future. And another example is on organoid technology. Organoids or microscopically small functional organs that are developed from individual stem cells that were taken from patients. And this is a technology that can be used, for example, as a rapid test for personalized medicine. So in the right corner of the slide, you see that an example for cancer patients where we take a biopsy from healthy tissue and tumor tissue, grow them into biobanks, and then can do all kind of tests, for example, of drugs that are under development to see whether they are functional in a organ setting or of a specific patient population. And by doing that, we can much faster validate potential efficacy and safety of drugs in development. But we can also use these kind of models as a predictive models to select patients that might benefit from certain drugs, giving their specific genotype and phenotype of the tumor. So this is a technology that we are further expanding and extending with our research institutes and with companies that are interested to use it. Another example is biofabrication as a technology that facilitates regenerative medicine. Within Utrecht, we take a leading role here internationally, and we have several examples here, what we call moonshot programs, in which we develop tissue constructs. So we use printing technology and printing living cells into biodegradable scaffolds or matrix structures to grow in a lab certain tissues or certain organ parts that can then be implanted in humans. And examples here are cartilage in knees or heart muscle or liver tissue or kidney tissue. And this is a technology that we also work with several companies that want to bring these technologies to the market, either as in vitro models or as parts for replacing certain structures and functions in the body. And finally, another example of image sciences. So together with companies like Philips and Elekta, we have developed a new generation of MRI equipment where we visualize a tumor of a patient, but at the same time during visualization, we can irradiate it with a separate radio beam. And by doing that, we can integrate the imaging function and the treatment function in one machine. So the patient can be treated very precisely. So the radio beam can be triggered to only irradiate the tumor and spare healthy tissue, for example. And in that way, there will be less complications and the patient will recover much sooner. So just some examples of technologies that we're working on. Yeah, just to highlight how we operate both from a research institute, but also together with companies to not only do research, but also to bring innovation to patients to the market. And I think that is the final slide of my presentation. If you have some questions, I think there is time for questions now. And otherwise, you can reach me through my contact details shown here on the slides. So I will stop sharing now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Smit.
And if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. In continuing is our third speech, which is Landing in France, Opportunities for Research and Business to Develop Your Active in France. We will welcome Jonathan Drubay to become our speaker this session. Is Dr. Drubay here? Hello. Hello, Dr. Drubay.
Okay, so now we'll start my presentation regarding the forum. So,
okay, yes, now
first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present the biotech and bioindustry ecosystem in France. We'll start with a couple of words regarding France's attractiveness, which changed a lot during these last years. Especially since 2016, we have an important increase in the number of projects settled in France from a foreign company, with also a number of jobs created, which has almost kept increased since 2016. There is a little bump due to COVID in 2020, but we successfully managed to reach the target we were aiming for in 2021, which is very important for us. The French ecosystem attracts a lot of innovation. Regarding the number of projects I've previously mentioned, about 155 of them were R&D engineering activities. So it's about 10% of these projects, and they represent a little bit more than 3,000 jobs created, which is very important to foster the innovation ecosystem. Three main investing countries in France are USA, Germany, and Italy, and of course we are hoping for more Asian countries to join. The main, sorry, I will go back a little bit. The regional breakdown regarding the number of projects and jobs created As you can see, it's focused a lot regarding the Paris area and also in the border close to our friends from Belgium, from Germany. So there is a huge pool of initiative at this area, but also
好，因为我们现在有一些技术上的一个问题哦，我们现在这个连线稍微中断了一下，我们这边请技术人员这边尽快我们排除这个目前现在在线上这个临时中断的一个状况哦。那我们现在进行的这个 session 呢是欧洲新创论坛的这部分，那接下来呢这个部分是由我们这个法国这边的讲者来为我们分享一下这个法国这边的状况。Okay, now we come back.
We'll talk a little bit more later about 110 operations to promote French regions abroad, which has been a success with implementation of these different kind of projects. So it's created almost 60% more job thanks to these investments, and 60% of these projects were located in old industrial areas in France, which has suffered for the loss of big industry and is now transforming into a new kind of industry. So really interesting way. Regarding specifically the healthcare panorama and health tech panorama in France, we have a really strong R&D institutions. The first one, probably some of you have heard of it, is INSERM, which has been founded in 1964, and which is a public institution only dedicated to human health, biomedical research, under the authority of Ministries of Health and Research. So they have more than 200 units in France, as you can see, more than 11,000 publication or co-publication, and they also created joint laboratories with 6 European counterparts and 23 worldwide. The other one institution is CNRS, which is institutions not only dedicated to health, but to many different kind of topics, and it's a major one in France. It has been founded in 1939. And it's basically the largest governmental research organization in France, with about 33,000 people. It has been ranked a couple of times first in Nature Index, and worldwide they have a little bit more than 1,100 research joint laboratories. And the final one, maybe the one that is the most famous because of the name, is Institut Pasteur, founded in 1887 by Louis Pasteur. It's a non-public research foundation, so it doesn't belong to a ministry, or it doesn't belong to the French government, but it's only dedicated to to biomedical research. It has also been cultivating a lot of publication, a lot of research units in France, with more than 10 Nobel Prizes from this institute. And around the world, they had 32 member institutions, and I think the closest one is in Thailand. Each one of them joined with local research authorities to work together. The research in France is based on what we call the research continuum. So when the French government really decided to foster the research in this field in 1958, they created university hospital centers, which can be called CHU, which are directly connected to university. So that's created a really a strong and dynamic ecosystem, because the knowledge and the experiments and the research can be prepared and think inside the university, but the connection to the hospital and to the medical care world was what make it easy to test, to experiment, to get more knowledge, and then step by step to innovate. So this kind of spirit has been really important for the development of health research in France. So now a little bit more about the companies and the ecosystem regarding industry. It has moved a lot in the last couple of years. And as you can see, most of these companies are from biotech and medtech, so getting ready for devices, and also the other ones are diagnostic or bio cleantech and biotech agro, which represent almost one-fourth of all the company in France. The business area addressed by these companies are multiple, but there are still 3 of them, I would say, which really highlight these companies, which are the human therapeutic medical devices for bioinformatics. So usually a company can work both on human therapeutics and medical devices. And then this is today the strong suit of the dynamic ecosystem in France. So it has recruited more than 1,000 people in 2021, and it's also planning to recruit almost 2,000 for 2022. Another thing to know is the French company, when they created device or when they create innovation, they don't only do for the French market, they create it for international too. European, US, Asia. Most of them, almost 70% of them, already think when they create a product to international and French market. A thing that is important to know regarding the French innovation is they created a competitiveness cluster, which are dynamic ecosystem gathering major corporation, academic, local authorities, and in this case of health competitiveness cluster is also hospitals, and all together they help each other to address an issue in the market. If a company has a problem and is part of a cluster, she can address this problem to research institution and find if someone has already worked on that. If a researcher wants to start his company, then he will find help among this competitiveness cluster. And also for a foreign company, this cluster can be really useful to enter the market, to get some fundings. And in the field of health, there are 6 clusters which gather a little bit less than 2,000 members, 1,400 being SMEs. Medicine is a major one in Paris region, but you also have the one in Lille called Club NSL Cluster, and the other major one is Lyon Biopole, Lyon being a huge cluster dedicated to biotechnology, to biotech and to health in France. Also, these clusters themselves, they found some projects or things their creation. They have funded over 7 billion euros of investments involving about 1,000 members. Now we'll talk a little bit more about the strategy for the future. We talk about what we have now, but what about the future? What key do we want to address? Under the President Macron, they started the Strategic Council for Healthcare Industry, which was supposed to launch in 2020, but due to COVID was postponed a bit. The idea is to set up goals and strategy for healthcare innovation in 2030. A little bit too far, yeah. So first of it, what do we start? Where do we start? What is our situation? So France and pharmaceutical businesses operating in France have generated 60 billion in 2019. We have a healthcare system easy to access for 67 million people out of pocket spending. In total, we have also a really important ecosystem for innovation with 13 Nobel Prizes and 4 French centers in the top 25, of the most innovative research institutions in the world. This is dedicated to research itself, but we also have companies, so a little bit more than 3,000 businesses in health tech and 750 in biotech. And France is a leading country for clinical trials in oncology, rare diseases, and advanced therapy medicinal products. As mentioned also by our colleagues from Belgium and Netherlands, France has also a fiscal scheme to foster the R&D projects. So we deduct R&D expenditure of 30% up to 100 million if you do R&D project. We also have tax credits, and we have a really friendly ecosystem to generate R&D projects. So the strategy for 2030, first of all, the target and the budget is 7 billion for 10 years. The first one will be to create and strengthen our capacity for world-leading biomedical research. So we do that by the creation of 6 centers of excellence and also the deployment of new health research infrastructure addressing new issues such as biobanks, clinical cohorts. And we also want to support integrated research projects and attract young researchers at the international level. And of course, if there is research, we also need to set up new training courses to address the new challenge we are facing. 3 fields will be prioritized, so biotherapy and biomanufacturing, digital health, and emerging infectious diseases and chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. The third strategy will be to make France a leading European country for clinical research. So first of all, it will be to lighten and optimize the workload for the committees of the protection of individuals to issue their opinion more confidently and to accelerate the research to experimental path. To simplify also the role of some institution and agency we have in order not to duplicate the work that entrepreneur or researcher has to do, to develop a methodological and operational expertise of new types of clinical trials, and of course to mobilize all the healthcare institutions with the inclusion of first patients. We also need to ensure equitable healthcare access. So we mentioned that France has already one with addressing 67 million people, but we always can do better. And so we want to address the immediate market access after the validation from the authorities for products, extend the criteria of reimbursement for new products, and of course entry into common law, a new kind of way of treating diseases or to addressing the market, such as remote monitoring. We also provide an economic and environmental we provide an economic environment for predictable and consistent industry. The COVID-19 proved us that we need to be able to produce some things ourselves or to ensure that we have a supply. And so in this way, the French government decided to implement incentives, encourage buyers to deploy batch procurement, and reinforce the importance of investment in R&D. Finally, we want to support the manufacturing of products in France and foster the growth of the industry, so through incentives with the important project of common interests in Europe. The reinforcement of BPI French, which is a public bank in France investing in different kind of businesses such as healthcare, and of course to address attractiveness with the appointment of dedicated ambassador, and I will talk a little bit about it later. Finally, they will create the Agency for Healthcare Innovation to reach this goal to 2030. In terms of strategy and funding, so the major funding will be dedicated to acceleration the 3 priorities fields I mentioned, and the emergence of startups and the growth of startups. The other one, funding, will be mainly dedicated to doing research, both academic and industrial, and also to ensure a supply of energy for a supply of products for us. So I mentioned the ambassador. The ambassador dedicated to health tech revolution is Dr. Torjman, which is graduated from Paris University Hospital and did a postdoctoral at INSERM. She founded in 2018 JETO, her own investment company, an investment fund which became the biggest one in Europe, with over 534 million investments in 4 years. So the objective is basically to help you seize the opportunities in France. So we will organize a meeting with her in September or a little bit before. So if you want more information, don't hesitate to contact me. You have my email at the end of this presentation. Here in Taiwan, you can also get the help from local ecosystem. So French Tech Taiwan has been, since 2016, building a unique ecosystem connecting France and Taiwan innovation actors. Actually, French Tech Taiwan is based in Taiwan Tech Arena in Taipei. I will put you the link at the end of the presentation, but don't hesitate to join us. They basically provide support if you are a Taiwanese startup and have any question regarding how to settle in France, how to do R&D in France. They will be there to answer. There are a community of 35 countries, but also in France, inside France, there are also different communities which can be addressing your issue really easily. And these communities have truly contributing to building France as a startup nation. And also their job and my mission also by talking to you today is we will keep creating, we will keep coordinating and promoting the different startup exchange program between France and Taiwan to help you either get immersion in France or really to settle your business. Some word about the French ecosystem or startup ecosystem. So I didn't put it here on the slide, but our president set a target for 2025 to have 25 unicorns, so 1 billion euros worth startup. Actually, we reached this point this year, so we have already 25 startups which reach 1 billion, so 4 years ahead of the target, which is pretty amazing. And this next 40 and French Tech 120 are the next startup to look at. Some information regarding the funding you can receive. So if you are a researcher, you can join French, you can contact French office. They are funding for early collaboration or to develop a collaboration. If you are a startups and want to partner with a French company, you can join the TIIP and BPI France mechanism, which has been created to finance R&D projects, develop innovative, ready-to-market technology. And finally, if you are Taiwanese and you want to enter the French and European market, then there is different kind of tax schemes, such as research collaboration tax credit. You have facilitation to set up your business in Taiwan, and also to get a visa if you're an investor, industrial, or a businessman. It's always possible to get fast track to get a visa, and for a long stay to give you the time to address the market and develop your product. Thank you very much for your time. These are my some useful links and the contacts, my contact and the contact of Sue Lin from Invest in France, which will be really interesting in addressing your question if you have any regarding the French market. Thank you very much for your time, for this invitation, and I will now get back to you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Drubay, for this introduction of France. And we all have your contact information. So if we have any question, we will let the audience contact you if they have any. Thank you. Okay, so this session, European Biomedicine Startup Forum, will be ended here. Thanks again for the 4 speakers, include Dr. Smit, Dr. Ozier, and Dr. Deschamps, and Dr. Drubay. Thank you very much. 那我们这一场的欧洲生医新创论坛呢，就在这边告一个段落。接下来的下一场活动呢，会是我们BioAsia Taiwan 亚洲生技大会的一个说明会的一个时间。那接下来的时间会是在我们4点55分的时候会准时开始。那如果说大家有任何对于我们这个 BioAsia Taiwan 有兴趣的话，欢迎继续留在我们这个会场。Thank you.